Hello, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Lauren.
And this is I've Got Guts, a podcast about living and thriving with chronic illness. Let's be real, it is really hard.
But it doesn't have to be. You are not alone.
With this podcast, we want to create a community and a space to be able to talk about the tough stuff
And laugh along the way.
The idea for this podcast stemmed from us trying to find one for ourselves to listen to, but not being able to find anything that didn't make us more sad or frustrated.
Our goal is to talk about the hard stuff, but also talk about how to get through it, be positive, have a full and productive life, and of course, thrive.
But before we get started, just so we are clear, we are not medical professionals. We are just here sharing our personal experiences. All right, end of April. Can you believe this?
I cannot believe it.
That means literally 2 months left of school.
That means I'm going to open my pool soon. I'm already scheduling that.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
All right, thorns and roses. Room, you go first. Are we going?
Let's do thorns. Let's just get the thorns out of the way because they're just thorny.
They are thorny and they're kind of funny, but I don't want to laugh at your thorn. Yours is not funny, but it's kind of funny now when you think about it.
Well, I don't know. Actually, I had a recurrence.
Maybe you're not laughing.
I'm not laughing, definitely.
I don't mean to be laughing.
So I am not ashamed of my IBS-C.
Nope.
Everybody knows I have it. It is not fun to deal with. And I a little bit lost track of when the last time I went to the bathroom was because I've just been living this happy life.
Yes.
Can't keep track of everything all the time. So it turns out it's been it was about almost 2 weeks since I had gone to the bathroom as of this past Sunday. And we're literally sitting there and I'm like, oh, I think I have to go to the bathroom. So I go in there thinking nothing of it. And then it starts coming out and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be huge and rock hard.
Massive.
So it starts coming and my body starts doing this crazy thing where it's letting a little bit come out, but then it's sucking it back in, which that hurt. That's not fun. I was in there for at least 40 minutes and you were coming over and had to have Anthony text you and be like, she's not okay. Don't come over right now.
And I'm like, okay, what kind of emergency are we having? Because it could go in a variety of ways.
Yeah. So I get the biggest part out and I say to Anthony, I'm like, I can't, something happened. I need to do the
good old enema bucket.
The enema bucket to get the rest out. I'm like, what could have happened? I've never had this painful of an experience before. And I did have a blackout while I was on the toilet. I didn't fall over, but I went black. I couldn't see anything. So Anthony gets everything set up in the upstairs bathroom. I'm in the downstairs bathroom. He walks me upstairs. I'm in so much pain. I barely, every step up, I was like a 95-year-old woman. So I get upstairs. I do the enema bucket, which hurt. And I get it all set up. I took in 2 cups at least of water.
You did not 2 cups?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I only did half a cup the time I did it.
Nothing happened. I was sitting there. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
This is frightening.
So it took a while. It took a good 15 minutes, maybe even 20 before I even felt something rumbling. And then it came out. The pain was I don't have words for. I was seeing stars. I passed out 4 times, not passed out, but blacked out. And then I was whatever. You ended up coming over. We ended up recording.
We recorded an interview that day, and even when I got here, I thought you looked a lot better than I thought you were going to look after what you just went through. That was a really painful experience.
It was the next day that the real problem came up and I realized something really bad happened. So I took 17 stool softeners because I was
you were popping up like Tic Tacs.
I was this is wrong. The next day, my body's ooh, okay, let's go to the bathroom. Oh my God, the pain.
Oh.
I have never in my life experienced pain like this. And it's at this point, it's beyond the doctor's office is open.
Right.
And I'm I was panicking actually. I called my mom. I'm like, should I go to urgent care? Do I go to the emergency room? And you know me,
you don't want to go there, but literally, when you're at that point.
I've never felt this pain before.
Yeah.
So I called a doctor on call. He had the personality of a piece of dirt. He was the unfriendliest person I've ever talked to in my life. And I was like, sir, I am in a lot of pain. I was I've never experienced pain like this. He calls me in a prescription. My pharmacy calls me. They're like, we don't have the prescription and no Walgreens in the area has it. You'd have to drive an hour and a half away. I was like, what? I'm like, but you can call pharmacies in the area and we can transfer the prescription. Great. I call Wegmans. They don't have it. I have them check the database. No Wegmans has it. I call, was it a Walmart, which is CVS. And she's like, we don't have it and no one in the area has it. So I have to,
like, what is this? Some cryptic cream?
It's lidocaine jelly.
And nobody carries it. That's wild.
Nobody had the version that he called in.
Oh, okay. So it's specific to the script that he wrote.
Yes. So I have to call him back.
Lovely.
He was not happy.
I'm sure.
And he's like, I'll call in something else, but like if nobody has it, you just have to wait till your gastro follows up with you tomorrow. I was like, okay.
Like,
so
he
calls the new one in. My Walgreens has it. We go pick it up. Pointless. It didn't really do much of anything.
Oh, so after all that.
And guess what? My gastro never called and followed up with me the next day. I was like,
shocking.
If this was Lauren's doctor, he would have been on the phone first thing in the morning calling her to check on her. That's how much my doctor and my doctor's office is just like, they're the biggest losers ever.
Right. Like, I'm sure they have to have some type of record of like the emergency, the calls that come into the emergency doctor.
I wonder if she was like, well, I'm seeing her on Friday anyway, so I'll just wait. But like, I'm suffering here. I'm okay in like moments like this, but when I have to go to the bathroom,
that's painful.
I said to Anthony yesterday, I was like, I think I saw Jesus for the first time.
He's coming. It is almost Easter.
So he did tell me I had an anal fissure. And it sounds like I'm saying fissure, but it's Fissure. So a fissure. So basically I tore open my colon on the inside. So I have a wound, an open wound.
Oh, right where poop's got to pass through. That sounds like my worst nightmare.
It is just like, you know what? Happy spring break.
Let's kick it off with a good old anal fissure.
It's really just what I wanted to do. I wanted to suffer in pain for 3 days of my spring break. That's really great.
Well, I'm just glad you're on the other side of it and things are flowing.
Starting to slowly
heal and turn the corner here.
It's more like I'm just getting used to the pain now.
Oh, Rome, you poor thing.
That's okay. Hopefully, with some rest and time. They say it could take 6 to 8 weeks to heal. So just prepared.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, it's not like you could slap a Band-Aid on that.
Oh my God.
Oh, Rome, you poor thing.
Oh, so I hope your thorn isn't as thorny as mine.
No, mine's kind of just, it does have to do with the toilet. So I don't know what's going on with the plumbing at our house, but my thorn is revolving it. So I'm just going to say it. I do believe that it's not just on me that our plumbing is feeling strained in our house. I'm not going to mention any names of who I live with, but I do believe they
Kenzie's fault.
They also may be having some bowel movement issues. Anyone who spends an hour in there is definitely working on something.
So we're working on something big.
Right. That is destroying our pipes. So anyway, I go poop a normal poop. Like, this is not a massive situation, and I've had them. I go to flush. I'm like, oh God, no, it's coming up. I'm like... So I go downstairs. We're at spring break, so Connor's home, and we have a friend coming. His friend is coming over to go fishing, and he's like, "Mom, I thought you were getting in the shower." I'm like, clog the bowl. He's like, "Mom," I'm like, "What'd Dad do with the plunger?" And he's like, "Mom, so-and-so's going to be here soon." I'm like, "It's fine. I'm going to get this unclogged."
Oh, my God.
Get the plumber. I plunge it. I get it all set. Flush it down, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, what am I doing? This plunger is gross. Like, the last time Sean used it, it was not cleaned properly. Where are we cleaning our plungers these days? I'm just curious. Like, not in the toilet. I'm looking at my tub. No. The shower. No, thanks. So I take it to the yard. Took it to the yard with the garden hose, and I'm spraying it down. I did a little Lysol spray.
These are the moments where you need to Connor, take a video. We need content.
So I'm out there spraying my plunger in the driveway, and
I would have paid to see
and
this.
And there goes one of my neighbors just waving. I'm like, hey! I'm like, oh my my gosh. Maybe she can't see that it's
Spring cleaning of the plunger.
Maybe she couldn't see it was the plunger from the road. But anyway, so plunger's disinfected, drying out, ready for its next plunge.
Oh, hey, at least it's clean.
Oh, gosh, the joys. That was my thorn this week. But all right, roses. Let's switch from the bathroom to something more floral.
Yeah, exactly. So my rose is we went out to a little town like half an hour from us. And first of all, we went to a restaurant, a pizzeria that was full gluten-free.
Okay. This is just the most amazing pizza place, Livingston County Pizza. It's in Avon, New York. And they have a gluten-free fryer. They have 2 gluten-free fryers and 1 gluten fryer.
And a dedicated gluten-free bakery.
Everything baked good is gluten-free. Someone who can take like 5 bites of a meal in an hour.
You ordered like 17 things.
The waiter's like, fried shrimp. I'm like, that's me. There's 4 of us at the table. Onion rings. That'd be me. What I got a turkey panini. Also me. Small pizza. I'm like, for me, but I'm taking it home for my son. Like I had this like huge course, and I took a little bite of everything, but it was just so amazing. So if you are a celiac and you want to have a safe gluten-free experience, Livingston County Pizza.
I'm gonna just throw it out there. Their fried pickles were the best fried pickles I've ever had, and they were gluten-free.
Yeah, I had 4.
Yeah, they were delicious. But that was just the beginning of our night. Yes. So we went to this cute little place called Geek Chic Floral, and she makes wood flowers. And we made these cute little Easter baskets, and you got to like pick the colors you wanted. And so when we got there, your basket was out with your colored flowers, and she gave us like greens and lavender and like all fake.
Yeah.
Didn't look fake though.
No, not at all.
And you got to like make these beautiful Easter baskets. We'll have to post a picture because they came out so cute. I'm like, I want to leave this out for the rest of the year. Why just Easter? It's so cute.
I know. I mean, it does have bunny ears, but I do love bunnies.
We're going to have to go back and make one that we can leave out all the time because like I'm loving it in my kitchen.
Yeah, so am I. And she was wonderful.
Yes. And our friend Taryn set this up. So we were there with some of her friends and her mom and her grandma. And we just love Taryn. So any time spent with Taryn is well worth it.
It was so fun. And we came home with these beautiful Easter bouquet baskets things.
Yeah. So, it was a good rose.
It was.
And your rose?
I feel like it was like a shared rose.
It was a shared rose, but you also have a rose that's like good news.
It is great news. So I saw the vascular doctor yesterday. He was wonderful. And he went over everything with me about my celiac artery and that I do have an aneurysm in there, which just means it's expanded 9 millimeters. And he assured me that it would need to get significantly larger for it to be concerning to need surgery. So I don't need surgery. I was like, yay. And he did say too, like there's just so many variables in there with, the radiologist when they're reading it and the size of me and my blood vessels. Everybody's blood vessels are different. There's an average range, but I'm a little bit more petite in there. So he's thinking that might be skewing it. He was like, Lauren, you have nothing to worry about. We're just going to keep an eye on it. Every 6 months, you'll get an ultrasound and a check-in with me and we'll watch it. And if obviously it grows or the aneurysm gets bigger, or I all of a sudden have massive pain, obviously we know, I have that and just to watch it. So great news.
Good news from a doctor.
Yeah. So after that, I was so happy. I was just so happy. It was just the perfect doctor's appointment.
Love it. I love a good doctor, Rose.
Yeah, so that was my rose. But all right. We have a really great episode for you today. A nice little interview.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to I've Got Guts, the podcast where we dive deep into life with chronic illness and explore how to live well, body, mind, and gut. And as someone living with gastroparesis, I know firsthand how isolating and overwhelming it can feel. That's why I'm especially excited about today's episode. We're joined by Crystal Saltrelli, certified health coach, speaker, author of Living Well with Gastroparesis, and co-host of the Living Well pod. Crystal was a huge part of my gastroparesis journey. The first thing I did after diagnosis was purchase Living Well with Gastroparesis and use that to help guide me through my elimination diet and lifestyle choices.
Crystal was diagnosed with idiopathic gastroparesis at just 23 years old and has since dedicated her life to helping others manage their symptoms and reclaim their lives. She's a beacon of knowledge and hope in the gastroparesis community, and we can't wait for you to hear her story and insights. Welcome, Crystal.
Oh my goodness, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
We had to build you up. Steph has been like smiling ear to ear about this interview all week. So we're so thrilled that you're here with us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So, gosh, 23 years old. That's crazy. Can you share your initial experience upon being diagnosed with gastroparesis and how it impacted your life?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 23. I'm about to turn 44. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So 2 decades. And to the best of my recollection, because that's a long time back to recall, but it really kind of threw me for a loop, to be honest. As if you can imagine back 20 some odd years ago, there weren't Facebook groups, there wasn't Reddit. I mean, there weren't a lot of places to connect with other people who had been diagnosed. There were no books on it. That's the reason I wrote my book eventually, was because there really were no resources beyond kind of the 1-page handout that the doctor gave you, in the doctor's office when you were diagnosed. And so I spent the first several years after my diagnosis, like really spiraling, I guess, to be honest, both physically and mentally, emotionally. I had a lot of kind of misconceptions, I think, about gastroparesis and what was necessary to live with gastroparesis and manage symptoms. And so the first 5 years after my diagnosis were really, really rough.
Yep. It's crazy. Same. That was the hardest part. Those 5. My doctor, the first doctor who diagnosed me was actually a specialist. He retired a week after he diagnosed me. And his biggest piece of advice for me was, he said, give yourself 5 to 10 years before you find kind of a comfort zone.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I remember when you met him, you loved him.
And then he retired.
And you were I think you cried.
I did cry.
So
relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So what motivated you to transition from managing your own health challenges to becoming a coach and just advocate for others?
So after those first 5 years where I was really kind of floundering, I couldn't find somebody to help me. And so I went back to school for integrative nutrition and health coaching, never intending to help anybody else. The trouble that I had always had was doctors obviously have their set of medical expertise and are really focused on symptom management. And then I was seeing alternative and complementary practitioners who were trying to work on other things and more holistic minded, but they had no information about gastroparesis and no foundation in that. And so after those first 5 years, I kind of figured, well, I know a little bit about gastroparesis now, so let me go back and educate myself in kind of this holistic wellness picture and see if I can put them together for myself.
Right.
And that's really how it started. And I started a blog in 2009, living with gastroparesis, and was just sharing what I was learning because it was helping me put a lot of pieces together for myself. And people started following my blog, and then people started reaching out to me. And toward the end of my time at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I had to coach people to get the certification. So it had never been my goal to coach people, but I was like, well, I did all the classes and all the work, and I might as well get the actual certification.
Yeah.
So some of the people that had been reaching out to me, I was like, do you want me to coach you? Like, do you want to have a few sessions? And that's literally how it started. And people were getting so much benefit out of it. I kept doing it. And it just happened by accident. almost.
Wow.
And then as I was coaching, I was getting so much information because I was getting to spend hours with other people with gastroparesis. And because of my work, because of my kind of foundation now with holistic health, I was kind of like building out these symptom management plans. And so it happened accidentally almost, and it evolved like super organically. And, looking back, it's been 15 years now. And it's like, that's crazy. I don't even know how that happened. But
it was
I'm
your
grateful
purpose.
that it did. Yeah.
It was your purpose. It sounds like you love it too.
Yeah. We'll probably talk a little bit later in the podcast. I'm actually like moving away from it a little bit, but not because it's not good and important work.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute like blessing to be able to take something that's been so difficult for me and do something with it to help other people, which I'm sure you both feel through the podcast as well.
Yeah, that's why we started this, because we know what it's like to flounder kind of having these rare illnesses, and we want to help people.
Yeah.
So how has your background in sociology and training in integrative nutrition influenced your approach to coaching individuals with chronic illnesses?
So the background in integrative nutrition was really huge, because when I was diagnosed with gastroparesis, and I think even still, a lot of the main tools that we're given are really like diet and drugs, right? Medicine to manage your symptoms, or diet to also try to manage your symptoms.
Yep.
But what I learned is that there's so much more than that that goes into living well, right? That goes into, especially when we're going to start talking about thriving and feeling good. And so I developed what I called the comprehensive management plan to kind of take into account not just medical treatment, not just dietary changes, but things like nutrition and supplementation and lifestyle practices and relationships and support and mental health, which nobody was talking about around gastroparesis or really any chronic illness, right? But it's such a huge factor. And so, really kind of getting that foundation in holistic health and integrative nutrition, it completely changed the way I personally managed my own gastroparesis. And then that was the entire foundation of all the work I've really ever done with gastroparesis with others. So
I love that. It's so important for people to know it goes beyond just, like you said, diet and drugs. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
So can you explain the 3 principles framework and how it has reshaped your perspective on health and wellness?
Yeah. So the 3 principles, it's kind of a paradigm for looking at our experience. And I don't think it, I don't talk a lot about like the actual 3 principles, but it's a foundation. It's a paradigm that I was trained in coaching later on down the track. So in the way that this integrative nutrition foundation completely changed how I thought about symptom management for gastroparesis, learning about the 3 principles, and I'll describe them in a second, completely changed the way I thought about like living well and especially thriving with chronic illness. And so it's really just the understanding of where our experience comes from. It's the fact that we experience everything through our thinking. Like there's no other way for us to experience things. And this had become so clear to me over years and years of coaching people, that people were having very different experiences of this same condition. And personally, myself and the clients I was working with, we were all also having very different experiences from day to day, week to week, not corresponding like you would think to, well, my symptoms are worse, my symptoms are better. And so I knew after just a few years of coaching, like there's something else here, but I didn't, I was like, well, maybe it's positive thinking, maybe it's mantras, maybe it's all this stuff. And it really, for me, once I heard this idea that like we are always feeling our thinking, and not from a prescriptive way, not like, so change your thinking, but just more of like an understanding. Like if this feels really, really hard right now, that's going to change because our thoughts are always moving and changing.
Yep.
And that has brought me so much more peace and so much relief because, you know, even as someone who has made a career of helping people manage their symptoms, we don't have 100% control over our symptoms ever.
Nope.
Right? Over our bodies in any way. And so to see another place where we can get some freedom separate from that kind of really tight grip on symptom management, it totally changed my experience of gastroparesis for myself. And also anxiety. I had struggled a lot with anxiety and health anxiety. And then it also totally changed how I was coaching people as well.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's like that relationship that you have with your pain, with your feelings, you know, right?
Yes.
It's
yes. And what we make it mean and the stories
Yeah.
we tell about it and how much suffering is really wrapped up in that.
Yep.
That as you kind of see through it, things just get easier, even if nothing else changes.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And it's that lens that you're looking through too, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like we've all experienced that, you know? So,
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So let's talk about just living well with gastroparesis. So what are some common misconceptions about gastroparesis that you'd like to address today?
So I'll start with one of my pet peeves, actually.
Yeah, let's hear
about living with gastroparesis. You know, as I was saying, when I was diagnosed, there wasn't an online space where you could connect with others. And now there is, and that's phenomenal in so many ways. But I also think it can be really detrimental. And I think it often paints a really warped picture of what it means to have gastroparesis.
Yes.
And I think people don't tend to consider that when you're going into Facebook groups or you're watching YouTube videos, you know, people who are making content or asking for help around this are the people who are struggling. They're kind of self-selected toward one end of the spectrum, right? And those are the people who are struggling at the moment. I mean, I have had the great pleasure over 15 years of hearing from the people who get better, who learn to manage their symptoms in a way that they, you know, live quote unquote normal. Like, what does that even mean, right?
Yeah.
But the other side of that, where people are doing well, they're not posting on social media.
Yep.
They're not creating content about that. And so I think when we are diagnosed and we go online, it is so terrifying because it looks like this is the only way for this to go.
Yes, I could not connect more with that. I literally, after I got to a good space with my achalasia, I stepped back from the Facebook groups. I couldn't keep listening to everybody's stories. Like I would comment on things and connect with people, but it got to a point where I'm like, this isn't serving me because it's getting me in the what if that I go down that route, you know, what if this happens to my esophagus, you know? So I could not connect more with that.
Yeah. And so that's been the big thing that really through all of the time that I've been creating content, you know, the thing that people seem to be the most surprised about is that you can live well with gastroparesis.
Yeah.
And it's not to say there's not pain and struggle and, you know, difficulty and very hard times, but there are also really good times. And there are also so many things that we can do from a self-care, self-advocacy standpoint. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was, like I said, I had a lot of misconceptions about gastroparesis when I was diagnosed. That was one of them. It didn't look like it was possible to live a life with gastroparesis. It was like, I have to get rid of this if I ever want to be okay and live any semblance of a normal life. And I just, 20 years later, like I just don't think that's true.
Yeah. I was like, I thought for sure I was going to have a feeding tube and go on this medicine that was going to give me permanent tics. And I was going to have a gastric pacemaker. Like I went down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, this is what my life is going to look like. And it doesn't look anything like that.
And it's not static either. So I do have a gastric pacemaker, but it's off. And it's been turned off for 7 years. And so there was a time when I needed that and that was appropriate. And now I don't. And, my life over the last 20 years, my symptoms, my treatment, like it has changed so much. There's nothing permanent in this condition. And I think some people hear that and find that frustrating because it's like, well, then you don't really know what to expect. But to me, it's like, that's a relief because in the hard times, it's not going to be hard forever.
Yeah. And it makes me, I find, appreciate the good times even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when they come, it's like, I feel good. We're doing this. Like, let's embrace it.
Yep.
It just gives you that deeper appreciation for life.
Absolutely.
So you do such a nice job of explaining in both of your books that gastroparesis is an individualized disease and what works for one person may not work for the other. Do you find that this is a common frustration for your gastroparesis patients, especially when it comes to trying to get their friends and family members to understand it?
Yeah, I think it's a very common frustration. It's not a condition where you can be like, do these 5 things and they're going to make you feel better. I mean, it really requires a great deal of experimentation. And I think that can feel frustrating. It can feel overwhelming. And it can be difficult to try to explain to people how different it can look from person to person and how different it can be for the same person over time. And it really comes down to, you have to listen to your body and you have to really be present to say, what do I need now? And it's frustrating to explain that to other people, for sure. But also what I have learned and what I have tried to impart to clients is you can't make anybody understand anything, right? We can do our best, but we need to continue doing what's right for us and doing what works for us.
Yep.
So that's really the bottom line.
It's true. It took me a long time to get to that place. I would say probably for the first 3 years of my diagnosis, it was so... I think my family went through a period of grief that was worse than the grief that I went through. And trying to explain to them, even now, like, they're like, wait, I didn't think you could eat that. And I'm like, normally I can't, but I'm feeling really good right now, so I can. But in 2 weeks, I might not be able to eat that again. You never know.
Yeah. And even still, I mean, 20 years on, people will still like, I didn't know you could eat that, or I thought you could eat this. And it's like, well, not this week, know?
Exactly. And it really does come down to, I have learned to listen. I know my body so well. Like I always tell her, I can look at alcohol and my body's like, not today. Like just looking at it.
Yeah.
I have to honor that because if I don't honor that, then I'm sick for like a week.
Absolutely. And that's a gift that we have that kind of intuition available to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And trusting that, I think, is huge.
It is. We have that own like inner compass that is showing us where to go. And it's just a matter of sometimes tuning out the world around us and the people around us and tuning into yourself. So it's wild. I feel like being on this journey, it forces us to just go in a direction that maybe most people don't always go, because
I think that's true.
They're feeling good and they're just living the day to day. So it's something to be grateful for in there. So this leads us into our next question for you, which is how do you guide clients in just finding that balance between managing symptoms and then leading fulfilling lives?
And this is a tricky one, I think, especially for a condition where symptom management is ongoing, right? And your needs do tend to shift and change over time. But one of the things is kind of what we were talking about, right? Once you have that footing, once you have the information, to step back from being in the constant flow of that information, right? Because it can get incredibly overwhelming and it's so contradictory, especially because people's needs and tolerances do vary so much. And I think there can be so much noise around it that starts to like crowd out other things in our life, right? So much focus on our illness and our symptoms and management, and should I be doing this, and this worked for this person, and it can take up so much of our focus that it's almost like the rest of our life kind of fades to the background. And I don't think that's necessary or really optimal for symptom management in the long term, because that keeps us, I think, in kind of this like stressed out, searching, frantic, needy state all the time, which our bodies feel, right? And especially when we're talking about GI conditions, like,
oh yeah, we're feeling it.
Our bodies really feel that.
On the way to the bathroom.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I really think it is about trusting that you have the information you need once you have it, right? Yep. If you buy the book or spend some time researching online, you talk to your doctor, your dietitian, whatever, and then step back and allow yourself to continue to live your life while you're implementing that.
Yep.
Instead of making your whole life about implementing that.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. I had to make the decision to stop letting the fear of my symptoms rule my life. And it was a decision I had to make. And once I made that decision, my whole entire life changed. I met my now husband. I got married. Like, I had all these things that I wanted for so long that I was so scared of, because I was like, well, who's gonna love me when this is how my life looks? But it turns out I didn't have to let that fear. That was not a necessary fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about the three principles. The guy who kind of coined the term, the three principles, his name is Sidney Banks. And he has a quote that says, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. And I feel like that's what changed for me too. When I wasn't afraid of what I was experiencing, you just automatically hold less tightly, to all of this stuff, right? And you can relax a little bit, and your life does expand. And those things that you thought you couldn't experience until you were better, or you were cured, or your symptoms were managed, like they just start to, you start to see them, right? You start to experience them.
Yeah, so true. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Yeah.
So we want to talk a little bit about that mind-body connection. In what ways do you incorporate mind-body practices into your coaching, and what benefits have you observed?
So I don't do a lot of practices like meditation. I personally do gut-directed hypnototherapy because that works
tell us
nicely
more.
For me.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So this is actually, there's quite a bit of science on this, that it works just as well as medication for motility disorders like IBS in particular, functional abdominal pain, less so on gastroparesis, but some like anecdotal evidence. And you can do it with a practitioner. I actually do it with an app. Do we say brand names here? Can I say what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. It's called it's called Nerva, Nerva.
Oh, yes. My gastroenterologist asked me to start using that.
Yeah. And so it's, you do a guided meditation for 15 minutes a day, and it's very relaxing, first of all, but the imagery and the messaging is about, kind of targeted to GI things. So you picture your GI tract doing different things. And it really is just about relaxing around all of this, which can't help but, be beneficial. So I do that. That's kind of, I would say, like my main mind-body practice right now. And really for me, when working with clients and personally, it's really just been about like really getting really curious around thinking and experience, and knowing that when I start to spiral mentally, that's a sign to put things down, not try harder.
Yep.
And so if I'm trying to solve, like, why are my symptoms flaring? And I'm in that state where it's just like that frantic energy, that's my sign that nothing beneficial is going to come from that, right? We don't find important information from that state of mind. We just continue to rev up our nervous systems
and spiral out of control.
And so that's what I have learned, and what I work with clients on. That's your pause, right? That's when you put it all away, let your mind calm down, and you will see things from a different perspective once your mind is calm. And either it's not going to feel so important to figure that thing out anymore, or something's going to occur to you much more naturally as to what the next step is. And so I would say, if I have a practice, it's really that. It's paying attention to my feelings as a guidepost for where my mental health is in a given moment.
Yeah. Yeah. We've really just been talking about this a lot lately. And I just discovered Reiki, which has really helped me put my brain into a positive place and helped me turn my brain off a little, because I tend to be that overthinker. I need to know everything, but it's helped me to just kind of shut my brain down a little.
Calm it, soothe it. Like you're soothing yourself.
Yeah. It's very nice.
And you can feel it, right, in your body as well. And I think there's no doubt to me at this point that it's not even like the mind and the body are connected. To me, they just feel like one thing.
Yes, 100%.
Yes, so true. I love that. So can you share an example of how mindset shift has positively influenced someone's journey with chronic illness?
Oh my goodness. Well,
sure,
mine, certainly.
I'm sure you have a million things pull from.
I'll tell you about my podcast co-host, Samantha.
Yes.
She was a client of mine for a long time before we started the podcast together. She's a psychologist who now also coaches around gastroparesis. But when she came to me, she had pretty severe gastroparesis. She at one point had needed a feeding tube, and her symptoms were quite severe. And she has a son with neurological condition, and he requires a lot of care. And just, she was incredibly overwhelmed. And she had an Excel spreadsheet of all of the things that she had to do in her day to take care of herself, right? Take your supplements at this time, your medicine at this time, do 15 minutes of meditation, take a 15-minute walk, like this whole spreadsheet. And in our very first session, she was telling me, how she just couldn't get a handle on this, and she was always so sick, and she was always so overwhelmed. In our very first session, it just occurred to me to ask her, what would happen if you didn't do any of that?
Ooh.
And
I love that.
Her answer was, I think I'd still be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that flipped something for her, that from then on, we coached together for almost 3 years. I think she was a client of mine. We never again talked about symptom management in that way. Mm-hmm. Like, it just totally changed something for her, where she realized, oh, I've made up this story that I have to do all of these things just to be okay, and all of the pressure that was putting on her. And so it was that one question, which did nothing but like flip something in her, the way she saw things.
Yeah.
Completely changed her experience, to the point where she went on to become a coach in the 3 principles, and like she works with people now. So,
it was
it
that
really
rewiring of her brain, essentially. It stopped it. And then, she went down a different path. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's like, as soon as you see something differently, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can really like change everything.
It's true.
Yes. It's those peak moments that just put your life on a different path. I love it.
So can you tell us some more about the resources you've developed, such as your books and programs, and how they support individuals with gastroparesis?
Steph's got a stack of
I know, I've got
over here.
The books right here.
Yeah, so I have 2 books. My first book, Living Well with Gastroparesis, it was published way back in 2011, which is, a long time now, but people still write to me frequently. I mean, at least once a week, people are writing to me saying that it helped them so much to understand the condition and figure out how to manage it, which is just mind-boggling to me that after this many years, it's still one of the only resources out there to help people with
pretty
this,
much,
which is crazy considering how many people have gastroparesis. But so I have Living Well with Gastroparesis that really takes people through that comprehensive management plan that I was discussing. It's your medical treatment, it's your alternative therapies, it's your diet, but also your nutrition and your supplementation and your lifestyle and your mental health. And then I have Eating for Gastroparesis, which is about the diet. And that was actually, I just republished that in 2023 because of kind of my shift in mindset and how much I have seen about loosening up some of the rigidity around these rules that we have for Eating for Gastroparesis, and how often the rules were actually confusing people more and making things feel harder and more restrictive. And I personally think, we have so many other tools that if we utilize all of them, we don't have to be as strict with any of them. And so I rewrote that in 2023 to kind of bring in that perspective and to talk about things like food-related anxiety, which is incredibly common and, so important when we're talking about any kind of digestive condition. And so those are my two books. And then I have a program that I just put up on my website, the Living Well with Gastroparesis program, which is completely free. Like, you don't even have to put in your email address. Anybody can go there. It's 4 hours of video content walking people through all of this stuff. How are you going to manage your gastroparesis step by step? I have special topic videos for people who are newly diagnosed, are gaining weight, are losing weight, are pregnant, are struggling with reflux. I mean, all of these things that people over the years have written to me and talked to me about in coaching sessions. I just wanted all of this to be freely and readily available to the people who need it, because 20 years after I was diagnosed, there's still not enough resources for people with this condition.
And a lot of doctors just don't know enough about it to guide us in the right direction.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I think at this point, they'd have a little bit of a better grasp on it.
Yeah. It's so crazy. It's amazing listening to all that you've done and how you've dedicated your life to helping others with gastroparesis. And now you have this podcast with Samantha, right? And it's just, first of all, listening to you guys, it was so enjoyable. And it just I'm like, oh my gosh, we have friends just like us out there doing the same thing. So tell us, how does your podcast, the Living Well Pod, contribute to your mission of just empowering those with chronic conditions?
What I love about the podcast is that we've kind of zoomed out from symptom management, which is where I, kind of lived for a good decade or so with my work. And this is really more about the experience of living with these conditions and, like you in your podcast, thriving with these conditions. And I really appreciated being able to talk about more of these things around mental health, around how we experience things, around how, how tightly we hold onto our diagnosis and form our identity around it, how that impacts our experience just as much as, anything else we're doing. And so it's really, to me, it's allowed me to broaden this conversation. And it's not specifically about gastroparesis, which has been kind of a refreshing change of pace. Because I've been, how many times I've said that word in the last,
I know, right?
the last 15 years.
Gazillion times.
Gazillion. But we do talk to a ton of people with gastroparesis because, that's sort of my niche. And Samantha and I both have gastroparesis. And so, but it's been nice to just kind of broaden that focus a little bit and talk more about the things that are so super interesting and impactful to me at this stage in my journey.
I love that. And that's kind of why we started too. It's just wanting everybody with a chronic illness to feel like they're not alone and there are resources out there.
Yeah.
And we're pretty fun, this community of chronic,
some people,
the chronic illness crew.
We are. So just some personal reflections, like what personal practices or routines have been most effective for you in maintaining well-being?
The number one thing that has been helpful for me, both for my physical health with gastroparesis and my mental health, is walking and physical activity. It is something that I do every day regularly. And if I don't do it or can't do it, it makes a really big difference in how I feel. And I think, there's obviously a ton of research about how it's beneficial for our mental health, but it has really been impactful for me from the gastroparesis standpoint, but also just keeping my brain a little quieter, which in turn also helps my gastroparesis symptoms. So that's the first thing. And then, just everything we've talked about so far, is all just kind of baked in at this point. It's been 20 years and it's just the way I live my life now. I don't think very much about it. I say it kind of is like in the background of my life, the things that I do, because they're so routine. And yet they are also changing, from time to time based on what I need to do. But the gut-directed hypnotherapy, walking, those are two kind of mainstays that I just feel really good mentally and physically when I'm doing those things regularly.
Yes. And it's amazing when you finally find what works for you, right?
Yes.
Because it's different for everyone. Like I feel the same way about running. Like when I'm not out on the road running daily, I feel it, but
I hate working out. I know my husband's not actually listening right now, but once he does listen to this, he's going to be like, see, I told you got to exercise.
But that may just not be what you need, right? Right.
You got to find what works for you. I will tell you, I tried meditation for years because everyone's like, you got to meditate, right? You have a mental health, a physical health, you need to meditate. And it was never enjoyable for me. And
I feel the same way.
It's like, I'm sitting here in agony for 20 some odd minutes. Why am I doing this? Right?
It's like torture.
Right. And, but then when I found more like guided meditation and the hypnotherapy, like that's what works for me. And that's okay. Right. It's okay to experiment and to find what works for you. And like we said, like to tune out the rest of that noise.
Right. That you should do this, or you should do that. It's forget the shoulds. It's a matter of like what works well for you. And I love that you found that that guided meditation, because it is so powerful. Yep. I feel like I've been trying to get room for years to do it, but it was you have to find it in your own way, which you kind of did with Reiki, right?
And then I found Reiki, which is helping me bring me to a place of being able to kind of meditate, which I've never been able to do.
I'm so proud of you.
I know.
I'm like such a huge, I got a new kitchen table, this beautiful farm table, and it arrived and I just sat in it and I meditated for 15 minutes. My husband's like, you are so weird, but it just brings me peace. And I just sat there and I visualized eating and how my esophagus was going to work and the food was going to go down and all the fun times we were going to have. And then I just let my mind sit. And it's just such a beautiful thing once you find the vibe that works for you with meditation. So
I love that. I'm all for that.
And I've been working on it slowly but surely. And I'm actually going through IVF right now, trying to have a baby. And I've found that I'm able to sit and meditate and visualize all the things with me with the belly and then me with the baby. And that's kind of helped me grow my meditation journey. So
I love it.
That's great.
We're all ever evolving, right?
We all are.
Towards our best selves. So leads us into our next question for you. How do you navigate the challenges of being a parent and a professional while managing your health and that balance and all of that?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the idea that we can balance it all, there is this perfect balance. I mean, that's a made up story. There is no perfect balance to any of this.
No, and I just chuckle thinking about it.
Yeah, right?
What is balance?
I know. And it's been a struggle for me to set boundaries around my work in particular, because I am a person who like wants to just keep going with something until it's done. And when you work for yourself and when you create content and, you know, you can just keep going and going.
Oh, yeah. It's wild.
And so that's been a real struggle for me is creating those boundaries. My husband is really helpful with reminding me. Just the other day, I was working on our podcast and he was like, how many hours have you been sitting there editing that? You know, and it's like, go away. But that's the, you know, that was my like, oh yeah, too many. I need to get up and take a break for my mind and my body. And so, you know, it's not easy. My daughter's 12 now. She is homeschooled. So that adds another layer because I'm homeschooling. So much credit.
Yes. We're both teachers, so we know.
Oh, okay. She has multiple anaphylactic food allergies. And so when she was 5 years old, I had too much anxiety to send her to school. Yep. And so we started homeschooling, and she is such a self-directed learner that it's just was like, this is perfect for her. And then COVID hit and we were prepared already. So
got this down.
We got this. So it's something we've continued, and it has been difficult because, you know, that's a full-time job in itself is, you know, schooling and parenting. But I'm really honest with her, and I'm honest with her about my physical health and my mental health. And when I don't feel well, I tell her I don't feel well. She has autoimmune thyroid disease. She has Graves' disease. And so that's something I try to model for her is that you can be honest about how you're feeling and what you need.
Yep.
And so can I. And it's okay to say, I can't do that right now because that's not what's best for me. And likewise with mental health, to just say, you know, I'm really up in my head today, and sorry if I was short with you, you know? So just to be super honest, that's been, I guess, a part of the quote unquote balance for me, because we can't do it all. And it's not in our best interest to try.
No, definitely
Absolutely not. Because when we do, it's when you burn the candle at both ends.
And burnout.
And everything suffers, right?
Yes.
Your health suffers. You're short with your family. Like your work isn't as good. You know, I mean,
it's the worst. Then you end up lying in a hospital bed being like, I knew better. How did I land here again? Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to go off of the questions for a little because I do have a question for you. So you had your daughter after your gastroparesis diagnosis.
I did.
And how was your pregnancy?
So I had gastroparesis for probably like 7 years by the time I got pregnant. And I had lost so much weight. I was really malnourished. I wasn't even getting my period for 2 years. And so it was like, I don't know how I'm going to have a baby. Yeah. At the time, I was taking a medicine called precalpride, which I was getting. I think you can get it in the US now, but I was having to order it from Germany, and you could not get pregnant on this medicine. And it just really seemed like it wasn't even in my frame of mind that it was a possibility. Yeah. I went to see my motility doctor, and he said, "You're 31. Have you thought about whether you want to have kids?"
Yeah.
And I was like, could I have kids? Like it really, like I didn't think that was possible at that time for me. And he was like, "Yeah, like we're gonna work if that's something you want. We're gonna work together." And once I was pregnant, I had a fairly good pregnancy. I had to come off of the medication, which was a little scary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had to stop taking laxatives, which was really scary because I was really struggling with colonic inertia at that point too. But we did it, and she, was born fairly healthy. She does have autoimmune disease and allergies, but so do other kids, right? And it was really, I don't know that I would have considered it, definitely not at that period of time, if my doctor hadn't brought it up to me in a really like kind and gentle and thoughtful way, and then been encouraging.
Yeah.
I also had the gastric neurostimulator, and there's not a lot of research, I don't think even still, about how that interacts with pregnancy.
Right.
And so there were all these questions of, can we leave it on? Do we have to turn it off? We left it on.
Yeah.
We think it was okay. I mean, there was not a lot of information to make these decisions. So a lot of it was kind of just like taking a leap of faith. And we were really, honestly, like really super fortunate. And
you give me hope.
Yeah.
There is hope. There's definitely hope. Yeah.
And I keep saying, like, honestly, I know I'm 41, but this is the healthiest I've felt since diagnosis. So
And happiest.
So I feel like
It's like radiating the good vibes.
There's so much hope and possibility.
Yeah. All right. So looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future in terms of your work and advocacy?
So I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the podcast.
Change. I'm excited to hear about this.
Tell us more.
I don't think I've really talked about this publicly, so you get a little scoop here.
Okay,
but,
if you're ready for it,
I'm ready for it.
Okay.
I am ready for it, because I think it opens up a really important conversation, which is I talk so much to people, and I have over the last 15 years of coaching, about, like we said, expanding your life beyond your illness and your diagnosis. And I have spent 15 years talking about gastroparesis from a professional standpoint, 20 years from a personal standpoint. And I got to a point where I really felt like, I think I want to expand my life beyond this diagnosis and beyond health and chronic illness and all of the things that I have been very focused on personally and then professionally for, 2 decades now.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to not create new content around gastroparesis, which was a really difficult decision because, as we were talking about, there aren't many other people creating content in the way that I have always tried to do, which is educational, empowering content, not, a lot of the stuff we see on the internet that scares people. And so what kind of has allowed me to do that is knowing that everything I put out there is still there. It's still going to help people.
Yep.
And that I am now modeling what I want for everybody else, which is to live your life as fully as you desire, despite this diagnosis, and to expand your focus beyond living with gastroparesis. And so there's something that feels kind of full circle in that to me too, and stepping away to do something else. And I don't know what the something else is yet. Just in showing that it doesn't have to be your life forever, even if you're still managing it, right? Like I still manage my symptoms every day. But I don't know. I feel like my focus is wanting to go elsewhere now, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, we're teachers, and we've been teachers for 20 years now ish.
Yeah.
And we were like, we want to do something different. And that's what brought this podcast out. Like, it's just that you eventually want to expand yourself, do new things and experience new things.
Yeah. And talk about new things and, have different experiences. And I'm so, so grateful for, the work that I've done around gastroparesis. And it's not like I'm never going to talk about gastroparesis again. I'm open to and happy to do that when the opportunities arise. But yeah, just seeing what else is out there and kind of calling to me at this stage. I'm kind of excited to see what that might be.
Yeah.
I love that.
Excited for you.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see what you do.
Yes, and I feel like you've created this model, right? And you've been sharing, and now you've created the space for someone else to step in, right?
Yes.
And share their heart and share their, gastroparesis journey and perspective. And how amazing is that? It's like you're passing the torch. You don't know who it's going to yet, but right?
Yeah, and I'm really I don't know, it's like really heartening to see podcasts like yours, right? Where the focus really is on living well, on thriving, on creating a full life despite these diagnoses. And I think to me, that kind of represents a turn to what has been out there for a lot of years around chronic illness and gastroparesis in particular, and I think motility disorders in general. And so I don't know. I'm excited to see what other people have to say. You know, like everybody's heard what I have to say. Let me step away and hear what other people have to say and hear other people's stories. And like I think content like the content that you guys are creating is so helpful and necessary and important. And I can't wait to see more of that from the perspective of a consumer, right? Whether as opposed to a creator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
We're on a beautiful journey. It feels so right.
It does.
So as we kind of wrap things up, what message or advice would you like to share with listeners who may be struggling with their own health journeys or just in a really low, dark place?
For anyone who is struggling right now, I think what I really want people to know is how you feel right now is not how you will feel forever. Mm-hmm. And that's true physically, and that's true emotionally and mentally. Our experience is constantly changing. It's always in flux. Nothing is permanent. You are never going to feel this way forever.
Yep.
And there's so much hope in that, and there's so much possibility in that. Mm-hmm. And to just trust that things change.
Yep.
Things get better. You have new insights, you get new information, and all you ever have to do, this has been so huge for me to see. We get so wrapped up in thinking about the future and how am I going to deal with this? And what if this happens? But all we ever have to do is be in this moment right now.
Yep.
This is all we ever have to deal with. You don't ever have to deal with the what if or the future or the forever. Yep. Just right now. And right now you're okay. And you're going to do what occurs to you. And things are always going to change.
I love that.
I love that so much.
And I know some people who are stuck in that dark place right now might be listening to this. They're like, it's never going to happen. But it really does. Like, I remember feeling that way. I remember feeling like, this is my life, like I said. And my life is so different now. So like, I hope that people listening can actually take that message and know that it is coming down the line for them, that change. Yeah. Things will get better.
Yeah.
So true. Be present, be in the moment, because that's what we have today. And there's so much in this
moment
there is. That we have that's amazing, that there's so much to be grateful for in this moment when you shift to that. So,
yeah. So last but not least, where can our listeners find you or your resources that you have available?
At livingwithgastroparesis.com, there's links to everything, the books, the program, the podcast. So that's the best place to go.
Awesome.
Perfect. We'll make sure everything's in our show notes so everybody can find you. This has been such a pleasure. Yeah. What a beautiful way to end our, what's today? Thursday.
Yeah,
we're on spring break. So I'm like, it's today Tuesday, Thursday. Who am I? What a great way to end our day.
Thank you so much. This has been really, really a great experience. And I've loved talking to you. And I love your podcast. And I'm so happy that you guys are doing this. And I can't wait to see what else you come out with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, same. I feel very just thrilled for you too in your journey of where you're going next. So
can't wait to
stay tuned, right? Thank you for listening. We really appreciate likes, follows, and reviews wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You can find us at I've Got Guts Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and you can email us at I've Got Guts Podcast at gmail.com.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.